Hola, cafeños. We are Cafe Con Leche Travels. I'm David.
And I'm Travis, and we are
home.
Yay!
We made it back to Mérida.
It feels so good to be home.
Back in this familiar space.
You guys miss our living room as much as we did? It was 6 weeks, but it felt like 6 years.
Yeah, it felt like a really long time.
In this week's video, we're going to be talking about what it's like to do a visa run.
Let's go. Before we get into this week's video, shout out to our neighbors for taking care of our space for us. You guys are the best.
And the only reason the plants are still alive. Elena and Brent, we love you.
Yes. And we are so happy that we missed the hottest part of the year. It's still hot.
But April and May, we've heard, are typically the hottest months in Mérida, and we were gone for most of it. We're actually only home for a real quick minute, basically to switch suitcases. By the time you're watching this video, we will already have been gone from Mérida, and we'll be in another location, exploring another city, making a ton of great content for you to check out.
Yeah, drop a comment if you can guess which place we'll be.
Or a recommendation for where we should go.
Yes.
Because people keep doing that and we just keep adding it to the list. So we will be in a town near you soon, if you're in Mexico. So as you may or may not know, most expats in Mexico and around the world typically live and travel on tourist visas. So depending on the country, the length that the tourist visa will allow you to stay varies. Mexico is one country that has a pretty long tourist visa.
Yeah, thankfully it's 180 days, which is 6 months. That's what we have used and gone that full length of time this past time before we had to leave.
But you do have to leave the country after 180 days. Well, actually before the 180 days is up to leave and come back. And then at the airport, you'll be given another 180-day visa.
So let's talk about that process. We were a little bit nervous because there is a possibility that they could say no. And then if that happens, you only get 7 days.
Or 30 days. Basically, it's up to the immigration person's discretion. If they think that you're abusing the tourist visa or they're having a bad day, basically anything. And we have heard some horror stories of that happening to expats who have a lease or, have like put down roots and then arrive at the airport and the person is like, no, you have to leave in X amount of days.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I can only imagine what that would have felt like, but thankfully that did not happen.
But for the first 6 months, I was just had a low grade anxiety about that happening. But just so you know, worst case scenario, yes, you typically sign a 1-year lease if you're planning to come here and stay for a little bit and not do the Airbnb route or a short-term vacation rental route. So if you sign the 1-year lease and worst case scenario, you get to the airport and you're rejected, it's not like you're turned away completely.
Yeah.
You have a certain number of days, obviously, to come, get your stuff, and then leave. What would happen is you would lose your security deposit on your apartment or house.
Yeah.
Which is not the biggest deal in the world,
But you would still lose some money.
yeah. Were you worried?
I really wasn't that worried. But yeah, I mean, there was a small, way back there, there's a possibility that you could not come back for another 6 months. But I don't know, I've watched other expats that we follow and they're doing it and they've been doing it for a while. So I didn't have too much of a worry because of that.
Like everything, it seems like the horror stories are the things that get the most attention, but the vast majority of people don't have a problem.
So the process of what this looks like is when you're on the plane, which our flight, we had 3 different flights, total of 10 hours. So
David was asleep for almost all of it.
Yeah, and we flew into Mexico City, which we
had tried to avoid.
Yeah, we just don't think that that's something that we want to do. If you can avoid it, I guess try to not fly into Mexico City because there's a bigger possibility in a bigger city like that for them to stop you at immigration or customs based on what you have.
That's what we had been told. So we did not follow that advice. And it was a mess of reservations, but we ended up having to travel through Mexico City. When we arrived in Mexico City, normally they have 2 lines for immigration, one for nationals of the country and one for foreigners. The national line was actually closed when we arrived, so everyone was just in one big clump of people.
Yeah, it was a very long line. but it moved pretty fast. So you just have to kind of be patient and wait. At one point, one of the people that was working there said, hey, if you have a Mexican passport, come with me. And people were just not paying attention. And so more than half of the line went with this guy.
Like lemmings.
And we were just looking, we were like,
I was like, you guys
are
are
from Mexico?
Wow.
And then basically all those people came back into our line because they weren't listening. So pay attention.
And learn some Espanol. Because they were speaking Espanol. It wasn't very hard to figure out what they were saying. While you're on the plane, you get an immigration form. You fill that out on the plane. You can fill it out in the line, but it's much easier on the plane. And don't forget to fill out the bottom half of it, which we did and got sent back. So there's 2 parts, top and bottom. Make sure you fill them both out.
So then you just go up to the immigration agent and they basically just asked, what are you here for? I said, I'm here as a tourist. And they asked for how long or till what date. And I just said 180 days, but you can give a specific date or a month or something in between there. And they just wrote down 180 days, stamped the paper, and easy peasy, that was it.
It was a little nerve-wracking.
It was. I mean, you just get nervous because of the possibility, but it was fine.
Once you pass immigration, you go through customs. And if you have a connecting flight like we did to your final destination of Mexico, some of the luggage has been pulled for customs to go through, and some was just checked onto the final destination.
And I think this is the part about Mexico City that people may have had some kind of run-in with. I actually had my luggage pulled, and I don't know how they choose that or what it is about my luggage that made it get pulled, but it did.
Because some people have said like, oh, if you bring a bunch of toiletries back, it looks like you're opening a store, and they might make you, pay customs on that. Some, if you bring like a bunch of electronics or like jewelry that it looks like you're trying to like resell stuff into the country, they're gonna want you to pay a tax on that. But we had an equal amount of like toiletries in our bag, so it wasn't.
I had one electronic, which was like a MIDI keyboard in my luggage, so I have no idea what made them pull my bag, but they did.
And I actually freaked out because I didn't understand what was happening, so all we saw was David's bag, and I was like, my bag's not here. Oh my God, my bag's not here. What happened? And the guy was like, oh no, it means it's been, it's checked. And I was like, do you promise that it's gonna be a Mérida? And he was like, I promise. I was like, okay, random man that was standing by the luggage.
But yeah, so I got in this other line where there was just one person there, and she was very meticulous. The people before me, she would pick out every single thing and look at it and examine it, everything.
This like cute older woman had 3 big bags, and this customs person was going through every pocket, every zipper, everything.
Everything. Unfortunately for her, there was some kind of discrepancy with what she brought in. So that customs person moved and someone else came, but this person happened to be very fast.
Yeah.
So he just like rummaged kind of through my things, and then he saw my MIDI keyboard and asked me how much I paid for it. So I told him how much I paid for it, and he just moved on, and that was it. Person before me, it took 30 minutes for her to go through her 3 bags, but for me it took like 3 minutes. It was very fast.
Yeah, so if you're connecting through Mexico City, make sure it is not a tight connection. I don't know if those are even like offered. I don't know if the airlines build it in, but we had about 2 hours for a layover and used all of it going through immigration, then customs. We got a sandwich and shoved it in our faces at the gate while our flight was boarding.
Yeah, because even after you do customs, if that happens, you still have to go through security. So that was another like 20 minutes. So yeah, it was a lot of security checkpoints you have to go through to get everything kind of figured out.
Flying into Mérida, our first time 6 months ago, was much easier, which I think is why people recommend that. We would definitely recommend that. We should have listened to our own advice. Which we didn't.
But yeah, there's a huge backstory to our time in the States with scheduling, and I feel like this was just an added piece of that.
Mm-hmm. It's not our forte. As travel vloggers, we're not great at the traveling part. But you know what? We're gonna get better.
We are.
And we're gonna stop paying all the airlines all of our money in cancellation fees. But once we passed immigration and customs, we now both have another 180 days to stay in the country.
Yeah, we are back for another 6 months, which we are so grateful for. Thank you for letting us back into your beautiful country.
We're so happy to be here.
Yes.
And get to explore the next 6 months fully vaccinated, which is a blessing we talked about in our last video. And we made this video because a lot of you guys have been asking how the visa process works. We realized there's a ton of different experiences. This was just our experience. Some people love going through Mexico City, I'm sure, and other people have different ways of doing it.
One thing to note also is that you don't necessarily have to go back to your home country for your visa run. We didn't have to go back to the United States. It just happened to work for us in that way. But you can go to anywhere outside of Mexico.
You just gotta leave. I think the minimum is like 24 hours. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I think the minimum is like an hour, as long as you leave the country and come back in, but probably makes sense to do, you know, an overnight somewhere and come back. But maybe our next visa run will go to Costa Rica or Nicaragua or...
Tell me more.
I don't know. Paris, because that's open to vaccinated travelers now.
Yes.
We'll be cafe au lait.
So that's our visa process. Like we said, it may look different for other people, but that was our experience.
If you have any questions about the visa run process, go ahead and leave them in the comments. If we said something inaccurate, which you guys are always great at doing, kindly correct us in the comments. We love how supportive and wonderful our community has been and continues to be. And we really appreciate all of you guys for watching and giving us hot tips and suggestions and advice. So if you have any visa suggestions, leave them down below, please.
By the time you watch this, we will be out of Mérida and somewhere else in Mexico. So stay tuned to see where we will be, because we can't wait to share what that experience is.
All right, here comes our tagline.
Hasta luego.
We will see you next time from somewhere else.